Today they spit in your food. Those 5 words, scribbled hastily on a folded linen napkin, hit harder than any headline. They stopped Billionaire CEO Marcus Thompson mid-bite, freezing the fork just inches from his mouth. For a man who had survived boardroom betrayals and market crashes, this was different. This wasn't business. This was personal. And it was about to explode into a story that would shake an entire industry. Marcus didn't come to the Sterling Room for steak. He came undercover, dressed in a faded Harvard hoodie and beat-up sneakers, to investigate whispers he couldn't ignore. A high-end restaurant in Atlanta, Georgia, had been flagged in an anonymous letter for racially biased service and suspicious kitchen practices. He wanted to see for himself. Alone. No entourage, no special treatment. The trembling young waitress who'd passed him the warning had risked everything. In a place where speaking up meant losing your job, she'd spoken. And what she'd revealed went deeper than discrimination. This was systematic. This was criminal. This was happening in hundreds of restaurants across America. The Sterling Room breathed old money through every polished surface. Crystal chandeliers cast dancing shadows across mahogany walls lined with oil paintings of Confederate generals, men who'd fought to keep people like Marcus in chains. The irony wasn't lost on him as he shifted in his corner seat, the one tucked behind a massive fern where the elegant crowd wouldn't have to see him eat. 23 minutes. That's how long he'd been waiting since the hostess, a blonde woman with a practiced smile that never reached her eyes, had seated him here. "Your server will be right with you," she'd said, the same words she'd used for the white couple who'd arrived after him but were already sipping wine at a prime table by the window. Marcus pulled out his phone, not the latest model that usually lived in his pocket, but a 3-year-old Android with a cracked screen. Details mattered when you were playing a part. The hoodie wasn't just any hoodie. It was the one his mother had saved for 3 months to buy him when he'd gotten into Harvard 27 years ago. The seams were coming apart now, the crimson H barely visible, but he'd kept it as a reminder. Some things money couldn't replace. His mother, Patricia, would have laughed at this place. "Baby," she would have said in that voice that could make him feel 10 years old again. "Why are you paying $300 for something you could get at the corner store for $20? But she would have understood why he was here. She'd spent 30 years cleaning offices, invisible to the people who worked there, coming home with stories about casual cruelty. "Can I help you?" The voice cut through his thoughts. A young black woman stood beside his table, notepad in hand, and something in her eyes made him look closer. Jasmine Williams, her name tag read, but it was the way she held herself, spine straight but shoulders hunched, like someone trying to be invisible while standing in plain sight. That caught his attention. "I'll have the Wagyu. Medium rare," Marcus said, keeping his voice neutral. "And a glass of water." She wrote it down, but her pen trembled slightly. "Will that be all, sir?" "That's all." But as she turned to go, she stumbled slightly, catching herself on his chair. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, and in that moment of contact, he felt something pressed into his palm. A napkin. She was already walking away, her steps quick but not quite running. Marcus waited until she'd disappeared into the kitchen before looking down. The napkin was damp with nervous sweat, the words written in blue ballpoint pen, letters shaky but clear. "Today, they spit in your food." The kitchen doors swung open, giving him a glimpse of the chaos within. White coats moving with military precision, the crash of pans, the sharp bark of orders. And there, at the center of it all, a man in a chef's hat watching him through the window. Their eyes met for just a second, but it was enough. The chef smiled, a slow, deliberate thing that had nothing to do with hospitality. Marcus set the napkin down carefully, his mind racing. He'd built Thompson Hospitality Group from nothing, starting with a single food truck in Detroit, working 18-hour days alongside his mother until they'd saved enough for their first real restaurant. Now he owned 47 establishments across the country, employed thousands. But tonight wasn't about all 47, it was about understanding how deep this particular rot went before launching system-wide audits. The couple at the window table laughed at something their server said. No one had smiled at Marcus. No one had laughed. 23 minutes and counting. The Sterling room had a heartbeat, the rhythm of service that Marcus knew like his own pulse. He'd learned it in his first restaurant job at 15, bussing tables at a diner in Detroit, where the owner had taught him that a restaurant's soul lived in its patterns. But here, the rhythm was wrong. Broken. Deliberate. From his corner, Marcus watched Jasmine work 3 other tables, all of them filled after his, all of them already eating. She moved with practiced efficiency, but her shoulders stayed rigid, her smile never quite reaching her eyes. When she passed his table, she wouldn't meet his gaze. The other servers, all white, he noted, gave her a wide berth, like she carried something contagious. The kitchen doors swung open again. This time Marcus saw more than just the chef. Behind Philippa Moreau stood a line of cooks, their faces a stark contrast to the dining room's pale homogeneity. Brown and black faces bent over prep stations, hands moving in practiced motions, while Moreau stalked between them like a general inspecting troops. One young Latino man flinched when Moreau passed, and Marcus understood. He'd seen that flinch before. "Enjoying your wait," the voice came from above him. Robert Hayes, according to the brass nameplate on his blazer, stood with his hands clasped behind his back. The Sterling room's general manager had the soft look of a man who enjoyed his wine cellar more than his gym membership, but his eyes were sharp, calculating. "Just observing," Marcus said, keeping his voice neutral. "Interesting art collection." Hayes followed his gaze to the Confederate portraits. "Part of the building's heritage. We believe in preserving history. Some history is better left in the past." The manager's smile tightened. "Perhaps, but our clientele appreciates authenticity. Speaking of which," he leaned closer, voice dropping, "I couldn't help but notice you seem to be dining alone. We have a lovely bar area that might be more comfortable for a single diner." The words were polite. The message was clear. You don't belong here. Marcus smiled, the kind of smile he'd learned in boardrooms where million-dollar deals lived or died on who blinked first. "I'm perfectly comfortable, thank you." Hayes straightened, his mask slipping for just a moment. Something ugly flickered across his face before the professional smile returned. "Of course. Your server will be with you shortly." He paused. "Though I should mention, the kitchen is quite backed up tonight. Your meal might take some time." After Hayes retreated, Marcus pulled out his phone and opened the recording app. Every conversation in Georgia could be legally recorded by one party's consent, and he'd been recording since he walked in. But recordings only told part of the story. He needed more. The couple at the window table was leaving, the woman laughing as her husband helped her with her coat. As they passed, Marcus heard her say, "Did you see them seat that man by the kitchen? In that hoodie? Standards really are slipping everywhere." They didn't lower their voices, didn't care if he heard. Why would they? Jasmine appeared with his water finally, the glass sweating with condensation. As she set it down, her hand shook slightly, and water sloshed onto the pristine white tablecloth. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, reaching for a napkin. "It's fine," Marcus said quietly. "Jasmine, right?" She froze. "Yes, sir." "How long have you worked here?" 2 years. The words came out barely above a whisper. She glanced toward the kitchen, then back. "Sir, about your steak. I got your note." Her face went ashen. I don't know what." "It's okay." Marcus kept his voice low, gentle. You did the right thing. Tears welled in her eyes. You don't understand. I have a daughter. She's 6. I can't lose this job. But when I saw them, when I saw what Chef was doing... She trailed off, blinking rapidly. What exactly did you see? She shook her head, backing away. I've said too much. Your food will be out soon. But as she turned, she whispered something so quiet he almost missed it. Check the dumpster out back. After closing, you'll find proof. The words sent ice through his veins. This wasn't just about one meal. Movement in the kitchen window caught his eye. Moreau was plating something with exaggerated care, his hands moving like an artist adding final touches to a masterpiece. He looked up, caught Marcus watching, and smiled. Then, with deliberate slowness, he lifted the plate to his face and did something that made one of the line cooks turn away. Marcus thought about the letter again. The anonymous writer had been specific about dates, about patterns. Thursday nights. Always Thursday nights. Tonight was Thursday. His phone buzzed. A text from his assistant. Monthly audit team assembled, ready to deploy to all locations on your signal. Good. After tonight, every restaurant in his empire would face surprise inspections. But first, he needed to see this through. Needed to understand the full scope of what was happening under his name. The steak arrived 15 minutes later, carried out not by Jasmine, but by Moreau himself. The chef moved through the dining room like he owned it, shoulders back, chin high. Mr. Moreau paused at Marcus's table. Thompson. Mr. Thompson, I wanted to personally ensure your meal was prepared to perfection. He set the plate down with a flourish. The steak looked immaculate, perfectly seared, artfully plated. I understand you've been waiting. I do hope it's worth it. Their eyes met. In Moreau's gaze, Marcus saw not just contempt, but amusement. The chef was enjoying this. I'm sure it will be memorable, Marcus said. Marcus cut into the steak. The knife slid through like it was parting silk, revealing a perfect pink center that would have made any food critic weep. He lifted a piece to eye level, examining it in the soft light. Nothing visible, nothing obvious. But Jasmine's terror had been real, and the look in Moreau's eyes had confirmed what Marcus already knew. This meat was poison. He set the fork down. The air in the restaurant shifted. It was subtle. A pause in conversation at nearby tables, a server stopping mid-stride, the hostess looking up from her reservation book. All eyes turned to the corner table, where the man in the hoodie had just refused the chef's personal creation. Moreau emerged from the kitchen like a storm front moving in. His whites were pristine, his toque perfectly scented, but his face had darkened to something thunderous. He crossed the dining room in long strides, bypassing the usual weaving pattern servers used. Straight line, direct confrontation. Is there a problem with your meal? The question came out clipped, each word a blade. Marcus met his gaze steadily. I seem to have lost my appetite. Lost your... Moreau's jaw worked. Do you have any idea what you're eating? That's A5 Wagyu, dry-aged for 45 days. The cattle are massaged daily, fed beer and... I know what it is. Marcus pushed the plate away slightly. I also know what's on it. The restaurant had gone cemetery quiet. Forks suspended midway to mouths, wine glasses frozen in mid-sip. Every diner had become an audience member to a drama they didn't yet understand. Moreau's eyes narrowed. Are you suggesting something? I'm stating a fact. Based on what? The word of that... He caught himself, but not before his eyes flicked to where Jasmine stood, frozen by the service station. You're going to insult my kitchen based on gossip? Based on observation. Marcus kept his voice level, conversational. He'd learned long ago that the calmer you stayed, the angrier they got. and angry people made mistakes. Tell me, chef, do you prepare all your dishes with such special attention? A flush crept up Moreau's neck. Every dish that leaves my kitchen is prepared with the utmost care and— Thursday nights, Marcus interrupted. It's always Thursday nights, isn't it? When the kitchen's at its busiest. When there are too many orders to track every plate. The color drained from Moreau's face. Behind him, Robert Hayes had started moving, phone pressed to his ear. But Marcus wasn't worried. He'd been recording everything. You're delusional, Moreau hissed. I don't know what kind of shakedown you're running, but— I'm curious, Marcus continued, as if the chef hadn't spoken. How many people have gotten sick eating here? How many wrote it off as food poisoning, maybe a sensitive stomach? Jasmine made a small sound, half gasp, half sob. Several servers had gathered near the bar, watching with expressions that ranged from shock to something that looked like relief. Get out. Moreau's voice had dropped to a whisper, but it carried in the silent restaurant. Get out of my restaurant before I— Your restaurant? Now Marcus did smile, and it wasn't a pleasant thing. That's interesting. Tell me, when exactly did the Sterling Room become yours? I am the executive chef. My name is on the menu, my reputation— Your reputation. Marcus stood slowly, unfolding from the corner table like a man who had all the time in the world. At 6'2", he had 4 inches on Moreau, and he used every one of them. Let's talk about that reputation. 2 former employees who filed complaints, both mysteriously withdrawn. A pattern at your previous restaurants. Moreau's mouth opened, closed, opened again. How did you— Who are you? Someone who's been paying attention. Marcus pulled out his phone, touched the screen. I'm also someone who's been recording every interaction since I walked in here tonight. Your manager's suggestion that I might be more comfortable at the bar, the 45-minute wait for water, and a chef who takes special pride in certain customers' meals. That's slander! I'll sue you for— Truth is an absolute defense against slander. Marcus kept his voice conversational, but he was aware of every phone in the restaurant now pointed their way. And the truth is going to come out. Tonight. Hayes had made it halfway across the dining room when Jasmine moved. It wasn't dramatic. She simply stepped into his path, forcing him to stop or bowl her over. Mr. Hayes, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Should I tell them about the list? The manager's face went the color of spoiled milk. Jasmine, you're confused. The list in your office, the one with photos from our security system. Pictures of black customers with notes about where to seat them, how long to make them wait. Her voice gained strength with each word. The one that says kitchen special next to some of the names. A woman at a nearby table gasped. Her companion, a black man in an expensive suit, slowly set down his fork and stared at his half-eaten salmon. Check your cameras, a voice called out. One of the line cooks had emerged from the kitchen, a young black man with burns on his forearms and exhaustion in his eyes. Check the footage from tonight, from every Thursday night. Shut your mouth! Moreau roared, but more kitchen staff were filing out now. Brown faces, black faces, tired faces that had seen too much and been silent too long. He made us watch, a Latino prep cook said quietly. Said it was a lesson in maintaining standards. The restaurant erupted. Diners pushing back from tables, some heading for the door, others lifting phones higher to capture every moment. Through it all, Marcus remained still. He'd come here looking for evidence of discrimination. He'd found something worse. Last chance. Marcus said quietly, looking at Moreau. Come clean now. The chef's face had gone beyond red to something purple and mottled. You think you can come in here, in your cheap clothes, and threaten me? Do you know who I am? I know what you've destroyed, Marcus replied, and I know something else you don't. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a simple black card, and set it on the table. The Thompson Hospitality Group logo gleamed in raised silver letters. Below it, 3 words: Marcus Thompson, CEO. The silence that followed was absolute. The card sat on the white tablecloth like a grenade with its pin pulled. Marcus Thompson, CEO. 3 words that transformed everything: the power dynamics, the stakes, the very air in the room. Moreau's purple face drained to the color of old bone as the implications crashed over him. This wasn't some customer he could intimidate and dismiss. This was the man who signed his paychecks. No. The word came out strangled. Moreau grabbed the card, turned it over as if hoping the other side would reveal a different truth. This is fake. You're lying. Call corporate if you need confirmation, Marcus said calmly. Ask for Sheila in HR. Tell her authentication code Delta 77. She'll verify my identity. Hayes fumbled for his phone with shaking hands, nearly dropping it twice. Around them, the restaurant had become a tableau of frozen diners and recording phones. Someone had already gone live. Marcus could see the telltale red dot on at least 3 screens. The Sterling Room's carefully cultivated ambience was dissolving in real time. This can't be happening, Moreau muttered, still staring at the card. You can't be. Why would I come to my own restaurant dressed like this? Marcus gestured to his hoodie. Why would I sit here being ignored, insulted, and served contaminated food? Is that what you're asking? The chef's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Behind him, the kitchen staff had formed a semicircle, their faces a mix of vindication and fear. Mr. Thompson. Hayes had found his voice, though it came out reedy and desperate. I assure you, if I had known, that's exactly the point. Marcus turned his full attention to the manager. You didn't know it was me. You saw a black man in casual clothes and immediately decided I didn't belong. That was just... we have certain standards. Standards. Marcus let the word hang like smoke in the air. Let's talk about your standards. Jasmine mentioned a list. Photos from security cameras. Instructions on where to seat certain customers. I'm particularly interested in what kitchen special means. The manager's face had taken on a greenish tinge. That's not... You don't understand. Then explain it to me. Explain it to everyone. Marcus gestured to the dining room full of witnesses. But it was Jasmine who spoke next. She stepped forward from where she'd been standing, hands clasped so tight her knuckles had gone white. I'll explain. Kitchen special means the food gets extra attention from Chef Moreau. A woman at table 3 made a retching sound. Her husband was already pulling her toward the door. She's lying! The chef's voice cracked. This is slander. With what money? Marcus asked quietly. Because I'm fairly certain you're about to be unemployed. Unhirable. Possibly incarcerated. He looked around the room. To those of you who participated in this, I want to know why. To those who knew and said nothing, I want to know why. And to those like Jasmine who tried to stop it, you have my deepest respect and my promise that you'll be protected. A young line cook raised a trembling hand. Chef said if we didn't follow orders, he'd blacklist us. Said he had connections at every major restaurant. He made us watch. Another added, an older woman who'd probably been working kitchens since before Moreau was born. How many? Marcus felt rage building but kept it controlled. How many customers? The prep cook who'd spoken earlier pulled out his phone. I started keeping track 3 months ago, every Thursday, sometimes Tuesdays if we weren't busy. He looked up. At least 40 in that time. 40. The number hit the room like a physical blow. I have photos! Another voice called out. A server with pink-streaked hair. Of the list in Mr. Hayes' office. I took them last week. Email them to me. Marcus said, giving her his corporate address. Right now. Moreau finally snapped. You think you're some kind of hero? There are 100 restaurants in this city doing worse. Maybe, Marcus agreed. But this is mine, and it ends tonight. He smiled coldly. You wanted to be famous, Philippe. Congratulations. The distant wail of sirens cut through the night. Someone had called the police. One more thing, Marcus said, loud enough for everyone to hear. I came here tonight because of complaints about seating and service. I never imagined this level of deliberate cruelty. He stood, pulling out his wallet and laying bills on the table. Jasmine, I hope you'll consider a conversation about a different position. We need people with your courage. She stared at him, tears streaming. You mean it? Every word. The sirens were right outside now. Through the windows, Marcus could see the flashing lights. The Sterling room looked like a crime scene because that's exactly what it was. Yellow tape sectioned off the kitchen while health inspectors in protective gear catalogued evidence. Police officers took statements from staff and the remaining shell-shocked diners. The elegant dining room had become a processing center. Marcus stood near the bar, giving his statement to Detective Angela Martinez, a veteran officer whose jaw had tightened when he'd explained the full scope. 40 documented incidents in 3 months, she repeated, scrolling through her tablet. And that's just what one employee tracked. The real number's probably higher, Marcus said. This has been systematic. Across the room, Moreau sat handcuffed to a chair, his chef's whites now rumpled and stained. Hayes was at another table, sweating through his expensive shirt as he tried to explain the list to investigators. Mr. Thompson, Detective Martinez said. Why didn't you just shut them down immediately? Marcus watched as Jasmine gave her statement to another officer. Because I needed to see it firsthand, not through reports that could be explained away, but personally. The detective nodded slowly. The videos are already viral. Your company's phones must be ringing. They were. Marcus had already fielded calls from his board, his legal team. Everyone wanted damage control. But Marcus had been clear. No spinning. Just truth. Ms. Williams, he called out as Jasmine finished. She approached hesitantly. I meant what I said about a position. The Sterling room is finished, but this building, this location, it's too good to waste. Help me transform it into something better. Me? Her voice cracked. But I'm just a server. You know right from wrong. You know courage. Marcus pulled out his business card. Take time to think. But I believe you have something this industry needs. Behind them, kitchen staff were being processed. Some as witnesses, others as potential defendants. Those who'd been forced to participate looked relieved and terrified in equal measure. There's something else, Detective Martinez interrupted. We're getting calls from former employees of other restaurants where Moreau worked. Similar incidents. The dominoes were falling. Marcus felt no satisfaction, just sadness at how deep this went. His phone buzzed, a text from his head of security. Audit teams deploying to all 47 locations tonight. Good. No more surprises, no more blind spots. I need to check something, Marcus said suddenly, remembering Jasmine's whispered words. He headed for the back exit. The alley behind the Sterling room was narrow and dark. The dumpster sat against the brick wall. Marcus steeled himself and lifted the lid. At first, it looked like typical restaurant garbage. But then the security light caught on something that made his stomach turn. Containers labeled with dates and initials. Security camera printouts with faces circled. Documentation of something systematic. We're going to need forensics out here, Detective Martinez said quietly, already on her radio. Marcus stepped back, overwhelmed. This wasn't just discrimination. This was organized hatred. Thompson! Moreau's voice rang out from inside, high and desperate. Marcus walked back to find the chef struggling against his handcuffs. "You don't understand. I was protecting standards." "Stop." Marcus's voice cut like ice. "Nothing justifies poisoning people. You think this changes anything? Tomorrow there will be more doing exactly what I did." "Maybe," Marcus agreed, "but not in my restaurants." He addressed the room, knowing phones were still recording. "By Monday, every Thompson hospitality location will have new policies. Anonymous reporting systems, random inspections, zero tolerance." He looked directly at one of the cameras. "To our customers affected by this, I am deeply sorry. We failed you. I failed you. But it ends now." The room erupted in movement, officers escorting suspects out, health inspectors sealing the kitchen, staff members hugging, crying, looking dazed. "You know they'll come after you," Marcus said to Jasmine quietly. "The lawyers, the media." She straightened her shoulders. "Let them. I'm tired of being scared." Marcus smiled, his first genuine smile all evening. "Good. We'll need that courage." As investigators finished and the restaurant emptied, Marcus took one final look around. Tomorrow, everything would change. But tonight, justice had been served. 3 days later, the videos had been viewed over 50 million times. The room scandal trended globally. But Marcus Thompson wasn't watching social media metrics in his corner office. He was reading letters from people who'd eaten at the Sterling Room and gotten sick, never knowing why. "Sir?" His assistant knocked. "The all-hands meeting starts in 10 minutes. Marcus nodded, gathering the letters. He'd read every one personally. Today, he'd face his entire company. The warehouse space in the basement held over 3,000 employees, either in person or watching via secure stream. No hiding in executive conference rooms. Just truth. "I'm not going to give you corporate speak," Marcus began. "What happened at the Sterling Room was evil, and it happened under my watch, in my company, to my customers." He let that sink in. "As of this morning, our audit teams have completed initial assessments of all 47 locations. 7 showed similar patterns. 15% of our restaurants where discrimination was policy." Gasps rippled through the crowd. "Every manager involved has been terminated. Criminal charges are being filed, but punishment isn't enough." He looked out at the sea of faces. "We're changing everything." The screen behind him lit up with comprehensive reforms, blind resume reviews, mandatory diversity at every management level, monthly undercover audits by third parties, zero tolerance with teeth. But the biggest change is this. We're promoting from within based on conscience, not just competence. People like Jasmine Williams, who risked everything to do right. The screen showed Jasmine's photo and new title, Vice President of Cultural Transformation. The warehouse erupted in applause. "She'll work directly with me to rebuild our culture, and she won't be alone." More photos appeared, the staff who'd documented abuse, who'd spoken up. All promoted, all protected. "Some of you may think this is too much," Marcus acknowledged. "If you can't commit to treating every customer with equal dignity, there's the door." 7 people left. Marcus memorized each face. "For the rest of you, I need your help. Your eyes, your consciences, your courage. Together we ensure this never happens again." The presentation shifted to transformation plans. Where Confederate portraits hung, local artists would display their work. Menus would celebrate diverse traditions. Most importantly, leadership would reflect the communities they served. "We're creating the Patricia Thompson Justice Fund," Marcus announced, "named for my mother, to help anyone affected by discrimination in our restaurants. Medical bills, lost wages, legal support." His phone buzzed. The CFO texting about costs. Marcus ignored it. This was what leadership looked like. The meeting continued with department heads presenting implementation plans. But the most powerful moment came when a dishwasher from Dallas stood up. "Mr. Thompson," he said in accented English, "I work your restaurants 5 years. Nobody ever asked what I think before. Thank you for seeing us." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "Thank you for being seen. That's how we get better." As people filed out, Marcus noticed the usual divisions seemed less pronounced. People talked across department lines, sharing stories, making plans. James Rodriguez, his CFO, approached with a tablet. "The costs are staggering." "James, did you worry about someone spitting in your breakfast this morning?" "No." "Then the cost is worth every penny." Outside, news vans lined up. Marcus ignored them. The real story was in the thousands of employees who'd just committed to change. Later, alone with Jasmine, she admitted, "I don't know if I can do this. Running a restaurant? Being a VP?" "You were never just a server," Marcus corrected. "You were the conscience of that place. That's exactly what we need." "When do we start?" "We already have." 1 year later, Marcus Thompson stood in the same spot where he'd once been served poisoned food. But Unity Kitchen bore no resemblance to the Sterling Room. Gone were the Confederate portraits and crystal chandeliers. In their place, vibrant murals by local artists told stories of resilience and community. "Table for one?" The hostess smiled warmly. Genuine, not practiced. "Actually, I'm meeting someone," Marcus said, spotting Jasmine across the room. She stood by the kitchen pass, reviewing orders with her team. General manager suited her. She saw him and waved him over, past tables where an elderly black couple celebrated their anniversary in the spot once reserved for undesirable guests, where a young entrepreneur pitched his business plan over appetizers, where families of every background shared meals together. "The inspector just left," Jasmine reported as he approached. "Perfect scores across the board." "I'm not surprised." Marcus watched the kitchen through the pass window. The new head chef, Maria Rodriguez, promoted from within, directed her diverse team with efficiency and respect. No fear in anyone's eyes, just professionals doing what they loved. "There's something else," Jasmine said, pulling out a letter. "This came addressed to both of us." Marcus recognized the handwriting. One of the 40 documented victims from the Sterling Room, a teacher who'd gotten sick after his meal. "Dear Mr. Thompson and Ms. Williams," Marcus read aloud. "I ate at Unity Kitchen last night. For the first time in a year, I didn't feel afraid in a restaurant. Thank you for making it safe to dine out again. Thank you for proving change is possible." Jasmine wiped her eyes. "We get letters like this every week." Marcus had heard similar stories from across his empire. The 7 restaurants that had harbored discrimination were all transformed now. Several had become more profitable than ever. Proof that doing right was good business. "Any word on Moreau?" Jasmine asked quietly. 18 months in federal prison. Lost his culinary license." Marcus felt no satisfaction. "Hayes got 12 months. The others got probation and community service." "Do you think they learned?" "I hope so, but I'm more focused on what we're teaching." He nodded toward their servers. "Every person we train, every meal we serve, is a chance to show how things should be." His phone buzzed. The anonymous reporting system showed 0 complaints for the 15th week straight. "I've been thinking," Jasmine said, "about expanding our training program. Other restaurant groups want to learn our model." "What do you think?" "I think what happened here could happen anywhere. I'd rather help spread the good." Marcus smiled. "Draw up a proposal. Let's change the whole industry." Marcus looked around Unity Kitchen one more time. At the table where he'd sat that night, a couple shared dessert, laughing. They'd never know what had happened in that exact spot. And that was the point. This should be normal, the bare minimum of human decency. You know what the hardest part was? Marcus said to Jasmine. Realizing my success had created spaces for hatred to flourish. But you changed it, Jasmine reminded him. When you found out, you changed everything. We changed it, Marcus corrected. And we're not done. Outside, the evening crowd arrived. Marcus recognized some faces. Activists, reporters, employees from other restaurants coming to see transformation in action. But most were just people looking for a good meal where everyone was welcome. His mother would have liked that. Patricia Thompson had believed in the power of food to bring people together. She'd died before seeing her son's success, but Marcus carried her lessons. Work hard, stand tall, never forget where you came from. Always do what's right. The hoodie still hung in his office, next to Jasmine's framed napkin. Reminders of a Thursday night that changed everything. Sometimes the smallest acts of courage create the biggest changes. Sometimes it takes nearly being poisoned to recognize the poison you've been allowing. Sometimes a napkin with 5 desperate words can transform an empire. Because in the end, that's what real hospitality looks like. Not crystal chandeliers or Michelin stars. Just the radical act of treating every human being with equal dignity and respect. The work continued. But tonight, Unity Kitchen was full of laughter and conversation, proof that change was possible. And somewhere in that dining room, someone who might have been served poison a year ago was instead being nourished. That was enough. That was everything.